I hope y'all can't hear the leaf blower outside of my building. Bad heroes. The man! Hi y'all, this is Jace, she, they, and you found Jace Reads Romance, a community dedicated to empowering women about sex and sexuality through the reading of romance novels. It is time for another episode of What I Read. This is for the week of May 19th through 25th. I read 6 books, 3 ebooks, 2 physical books, and 1 audiobook. Get your comfy sexy on. I am enjoying an oversized sweater. And if you need an emotional support beverage, mine today is tea. And I'll get started. The first book I read was The Bone King and the Starling. And while I now have my special edition copy, thank you Elizabeth Stevens, I read this as an ebook first because I could get my hands on it faster. So that's where all of my notes will be. This is more novella length. It is an incredibly fast read. And if power dynamics are something you're very squidgy about, I might avoid this novella. It is a Viking novella, which means no monster cock, which is odd for Elizabeth Stevens. But honestly, I loved this book. This is a story between Kalai, who is the king of the Vikings, and a thrall named Starling. And thralls are essentially slaves within the Viking community. Kalai has saved himself until he finds his wife. It is something he's very, very intentional about, which is antithetical to the way that we typically think of Viking culture, and especially the king of the Vikings. He is arriving in this small town for war games. He travels every year to different parts of his country to have these war games, meet the people, make sure that everything's okay, draw new maps, do really good things as a leader. Kalai is actually an incredible leader. I have to say that. Horrifyingly violent, but a great leader. And he sneaks into the town the night before he's set to arrive. And he sees Starling, this thrall, and he is in love immediately. He knows she is his queen. I should mention that Starling is also biracial, which doesn't throw Kalai at all. He is completely okay with that. He knows people of other races. They live in the capital city. And so her physical appearance and her mixed race doesn't come into play at all. And what he has to do next is figure out how he's going to let her know that she's going to be his queen. Starling is an abused thrall. I should warn you, there are some serious trigger warnings in this story, especially regarding the treatment of Starling and also violence in general. I don't mind the violence, but it is a lot. There's a lot of very, very, very big violence in this. Very gruesome, very well described. Thank you. And if that's not your thing, I would stay away from this. The day of Kalai's arrival, that evening, he is presented with the option to bed one of the unmarried women of the town. And he obviously chooses Starling, to the shock of everyone. Starling is a virgin, and the leader of the town's wife has essentially let men of the town bid on her virginity. It's so gross. Really, she is not treated kindly by this community, and especially by this woman named Rosalind. Kalai puts Starling on his lap. He feeds her, he seduces her, and he takes her back into his room. And it's so annoying and funny because Kalai is going into this exchange with the full knowledge that he intends to marry her, and Starling goes into this exchange believing it's essentially a one-night stand, that the king will use her and leave her the next day to now exist in this altered state in the town. So her viewing of their night together is very different than Kalai's. And while Kalai does use terms of endearment, he does say how much he wants her, how he's gonna keep her, how this is gonna happen over and over again. It's not really stated that he intends to marry her. He doesn't get down on a knee and clearly look her in the face and say, I plan on marrying you, because he just assumes and is also just incredibly lustful for Starling. And so the next morning, Rosalind sneaks in, orders Starling out, and beats her. It's not good. I will also say that Kalai shows no mercy. That it is a sexcapade of a night. Poor, poor virgin Starling. It also involves a bath. You know how I feel about sex in a bath. It's not for me. Nope, not for me at all. And the rest of the story is basically Kalai trying to fix this fuck up of not having Starling understand that he intends to marry her. She is beaten by Rosalind. One of Kalai's other warriors finds her, discovers that she is barefoot in the winter in, Viking territory, and has been lashed, and takes her back to the king. He is brutal in his revenge over Rosalind, let me just tell you. And then the games happen. Kalai again shows his very violent side, and Starling, out of fear and lack of understanding, runs away. She runs away, and Kalai has to pursue her and essentially grovel for redemption from her because of this behavior. If miscommunication is not for you, I might stay away from this because it is very poorly communicated, Kalai's intentions to Starling, and that makes for a really good story and some absolute fuck ups on his part. But if that bothers you, it's a heavy part of the plot, and I might find something else instead. I adored this little novella. I thought it was really well written. I thought that even though the power dynamics were a bit squidgy, however, Kalai's intention is so pure and beautiful that even though it's a bit squidgy, I was rooting for him. In real life, never. In this story, absolutely. I also happen to love a ginger, so of course I was gonna love Kalai. Now to my notes. So when I say that Kalai is smitten with her from the moment he sees her in the moonlight, and he's there incognito, he's not there as the king, so no one knows who he is. And he says he thinks to being received as a man only, and in the presence of a female so lovely the gods have grown jealous of her, that they would send her here, to this place at the forgotten end of the world, where she would be made to work at the lowest tasks and be treated by the villagers with cruelty as she does it. It is a disgrace, only redeemed by the fact that the gods sent me here to fix it all and to find her. He gonna marry her. This is where it gets a little squidgy because there is a lot of consent in Viking culture, and like technically she can say no when he asks, but when it's the king and you're a thrall, can you really say no? So he does ask, are you willing? He says, his hand still cupping mine, holding it aloft between us. And that's when he is asking her to be his bedmate for the night. He immediately gives her the nickname Little Bird. If you're weird about animal pet names or nicknames, know that Little Bird is in fact his nickname for her. Rosalind makes a rude comment about Starling being dirty. She is essentially a slave. They don't treat them very well. Yes, she is dirty. And his response is, my little bird could use a bath before I claim her. Why don't you draw her one? Skip, skip, skip. No, Lady Rosalind, not Elena, you. And makes the, head woman of this town draw a bath for Starling, the thrall, and I just love that. Elizabeth Stevens uses a lot of anatomical terms, and I noted that she used the word mons, which I appreciate. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. You should know what that is. And after they have sex for the first time, which takes a while because virgin, and apparently he has a monster cock, as they all do, he says, you're bleeding a little, my love. And her thought is, I tense at the term of affection. Again, he has not explained that he is in love with her and plans to marry her. So all of these beautiful lovey-dovey words feel vaguely false to Starling, because why would he say that to someone he's just spending the night with? If you like it when a partner shaves the nether regions of another partner, enjoy. That happens. And he says, I intend to feast for hours, and when I do, I don't intend to get your curls stuck between my teeth. There is a little bit of degradation, but he loves her so much that I know it's not really degradation. It's not kink. There's no kink in this. It's just very incredible sex. So he says, my little virgin whore, so well used now, a bed for my cock and receptacle for my seed and mine alone. I will lie in bed with you every night and seed you 1,000 times over until your belly is full with my heirs. And again, this is, yeah, he calls her a little virgin whore, but it clearly states his intention to be with her for more than one night and heirs rather than bastards. And so this is another one of those confusing moments for Starling because she can't bear his heirs. He's leaving tomorrow. He'll never, in 2 days, and he'll never see her again. So this is where communication is key, friends. And then he gets incredibly possessive. 2 little quotes that go together. They were separated by something. You're mine. He sounds upset, angry even, mad. Your cries are mine, your breasts are mine, your whimpers are mine, your hot cunt is mine, your ass is mine, your future sons and daughters are mine, your skin, your hair, your hopes, your fears, your wants, desires, it's all mine. You are mine, little bird. Skip, skip. Every part of you is mine, he whispers, voice softening as he pecks at my lips while I utter little whimpers, and I am yours. Kalai belongs to you, Starling. If you explained it, she would get it, but you don't. And then later he says, I'm going to go get you food because you obviously need to eat after I pounded you and I intend to do more later. You must replenish yourself. I will return shortly, my princess. Makes sense. Until. And there's also the fact that he bedded her before stating his intention to marry and before they got married. So there's a little bit of, I think you did it in the wrong order, and his friends, his warriors, definitely give him shit about the fact that he did this wrong. When he goes out to get food, number one, he is naked. He is covered in her virginity. There's blood on his genitals. And all of his warriors are very happy, and he's talking with them about this. So does our sweet young queen know she's taken her king's virginity yet? I grin, feeling a surprising warmth in my cheeks. Am I blushing? She does not need to know. I'm certain my ministrations have frightened her enough without her knowing. She's the only female I've ever claimed. No, it's another one of those, you really should talk to her. Please talk to her. When Starling is beaten and gets not returned, but when one of the warriors finds her and brings her back to the king, the leader of the town and Rosalind ask him, like, well, your thralls aren't treated better. And he says, my village has no thralls. We have those that serve, and they are paid a wage and as well as fed during celebrations. And so while he understands culturally in his country thralls still exist, in the capital city where he lives, he has eliminated the practice of thralls, which is another example of how he's a great leader. And then this is it. My little bird, he breathes hard against my forehead and then slowly plants a kiss right between my eyes. It is searing. I would not take you away from Winterbren as anything less than my queen. So he's starting to communicate his intention with her. Starling is brought back to the king. She is injured. He sends her back into the bedroom with a healer. And then he has Lady Rosalind lashed by anyone who wants to, which is quite a lot of people. And then has the metalsmith take the amount that she was going to get for Starling's virginity from a douche nozzle in the town, melts the metal and pours it down her throat and kills her. Like I said, it's very violent. And Starling doesn't know that this is happening. She's being healed. But she kind of discovers this in between tender touches and words that were saccharine sweet. Did King Kalai torture and murder Lady Rosalind? Mere feet from where I was sleeping? The King of Bones is a madman. She thinks he's crazy. That first night when he sees her in the moonlight, she is being threatened by a man in the village named Tori. He is the person who has bid for her virginity. And Kalai says to her, no, I have more creative plans for Tori. My note is he's a bit crazy. He is a bit crazy. He's so violent. And then Starling, later in the scene, goes, I did not ask for this and I do not want it. You do this for yourself. And my note is, yay, spine. She's not asking for the violence. She doesn't condone the violence. The violence is because he wants the violence. This is during the games now. He has Starling. So violent. He's Starling sitting next to him on the platform in the place of Queen. The head of the town is sitting next to the corpse of Lady Rosalind. It's real gruesome. And one of his friends, Kalai's friends, came to me and provided me with advice that I did not like. Let the boy go and kill Olek, who is, I think, the leader of the town. Be done with this now. Show your wife that she is more important than your rage. And that's it. Like, he has a lot of rage and a lot of violence, and Starling doesn't like it. And so what he should do is listen to his lover, his wife. And his thought is, my little bird is not a little violent thing. She is not the shield maiden to sever heads at my side, but the strong planks of a house to ward away the rain. She is my shelter as I wish to be hers. She is not my blade. And then Starling runs away. And her thought is, when she's thinking, what the hell am I going to do? I don't know if I can be with this violent person who doesn't communicate his intentions to me. Fear has been my only constant these long years, but perhaps I should find a new ally, one called courage. And she does. She runs away. And then this is the last thing I highlighted that isn't sex. When Starling is thinking about and learning about the world, I didn't realize there could be another way, that there was another way all along, that people could be treated with basic dignities, that the weak could be protected rather than beaten by the strong, which also is another example of the abuse that was happening in this town. That is everything I highlighted. Reminder, check your trigger warnings. This is violent. It is not for the faint of heart, but I loved it. Book number 2, The Undertaking of Hart and Mercy by Megan Bannen. This is my first Megan Bannen book, and I've heard great things about this fantasy. This book for me was the epitome of cozy fantasy. Is the actual story cozy? No, not at all. But this book made me feel cozy. It is a loathe to love, secret pen pals, kind of You've Got Mail-ish. And I will say that was one of the things I very much disliked in the book. But overall, I found this world really compelling. I found the story really exciting. And I enjoyed the journey that these two went on. In this world, there is a magical land called Tanria. And within Tanria are what amount to zombies. There are marshals that are tasked with patrolling Tanria and protecting against the zombie-like things. What are they called? There's a lot of death ritual. The complex and really robust world that Megan Bannen created with this fantasy world and religion was a delight to read and pretty easy to follow, I have to say. So if you're someone who gets easily overwhelmed by fantasy worlds and rules and things like that, this is going to be a good one for you because it is not terribly different. It's got a lot of steampunk elements. There are guns, there are cars, but there aren't computers yet. There are telephones and other sorts of communication, but there's also vaguely magical-ish things. So it's a lot of the fun stuff. There's enough technology that you can get away with certain things, but it's not the computer age, and there's magic, which is fun. Speaking of magic, there are gods and then there are demigods. And demigods are exactly what you think of, children of a god and a human. They are typically really tall. They typically have some sort of power or connection that relates to their godlike parent. Are they mostly raised by their human parent? Absolutely. Hart is a demigod, but he doesn't know who his biological godparent is. That's been a mystery to him his whole life. Now, some demigods are immortal and some demigods aren't, and Hart doesn't know which one he is, which is a big thing in this story for him. It's a big emotional sticking point. Mercy is the daughter of an undertaker. She works with her father at their funeral home. They are waiting for her younger brother to finish school and become an undertaker himself. She is overworked. She is unappreciated. Even though she loves the work, she does love the work of being an undertaker. Her father has really declined in health and his ability to help. And so Mercy has been taking on more and more and more. There is tension between her and her father, her and her brother, and her and her older sister. Her older sister and her brother-in-law work for the funeral home doing deliveries of bodies and things of that nature. Hart and Mercy, they've met and they had a meet not cute. They immediately started bickering. It wasn't a pleasant interaction, and it caused them to be very mean to each other every single time they interact. And so that's where a lot of this tension comes from. They have to, because anytime a body is recovered in Tanria, Hart has to take it to the undertaker. Often people will pre-purchase plans, and they have to have a key with the undertaker that they're using so that the body can be returned to them. Hence my key, hence my grabbing of my throat where a key would be. The rule is, if you're going into Tanria, you have to have a funeral package because it is so dangerous and the likelihood that you're going to die is quite high. Hart feels very lonely and one day writes a letter just to no one. He says, "Dear friend." And the mail system in this world are these magical creatures that used to work for the gods themselves, but the gods have since gone. They're not typically on Earth anymore. And so now these magical creatures are the letter carriers. And they magically know where to give these letters. And so Hart's letter is delivered to Mercy, and Mercy responds, and they build a correspondence between each other, hence the "you've got mail" situation. It literally comes to a head with almost a word for word, beat for beat of the scene at Cafe Lalo with "You've Got Mail." And that made me so mad because it didn't have to be like that at all. There's so many other ways you could have resolved it. And nothing else in this book is a "you've got mail." It's not rival undertakers. It's not any of that. But that scene appearing just felt so out of place to me. Once Hart realizes who Mercy is, that she is his pen pal, he starts to befriend her in earnest, and they build a relationship, and the story progresses. Hart learns who his divine parent is, and that there is a mission that only he can complete. It is dangerous, it is in Tanria, and he doesn't know if he'll survive. This is the moment where he really tests, am I immortal or not? As you can probably guess by the fact that this is a romance novel, everything works out in the end. And they are an adorable couple. This is the beginning of a trilogy, so I have a feeling we're going to see some of these people in later books. And I thought it was fun. She's a bit of a chonker, but it's a mostly straightforward plot. It was a really fast and easy read, and I enjoyed myself. Like I said, I felt cozy reading this. I can't explain it other than I felt cozy reading this book. It is not probably a cozy fantasy in the traditional sense, but I felt warm and fuzzy while reading it. On to my notes. The one thing I do like about my books is I highlight them very intentionally. So all of my plot stuff is up here, and then everything else I want to talk about is in the meat. So even though Hart and Mercy don't like each other and they bicker, they are incredibly attracted to each other. And Hart says, "It was so unfair of Mercy to have magnificent breasts." There are a lot of queer people around, even though this is an MF story. Horatio is the name of the magical creature who delivered the letter to Mercy. And why had Horatio insisted that this letter was addressed to Mercy when the writer clearly didn't know who she was? Because the letter says, "Dear friend," and then ends with "sincerely a friend." Completely anonymous. But magic, the magic never lies. Hart and Mercy are meant to be friends. Oh, their nicknames when they're not friends are Heartache and Merciless. Delightful. So my note after she gets it is, okay, this is the start of the pen palling. Oh, they're called drudges, the zombie-like things. Something really fun about the magic of this world is the soul lives in a person's appendix. I just thought that was a really fun little fact. Oh yeah, Zeddy, her little brother, turns out did not major in funerary services, rites and services, so he can't become an Undertaker. He did something else. And my note is, wow, shitty brother. Age-wise, Hart is 35. They're not in their 20s. They're kind of older. Yeah, my note. Zombies equal drudges. Okay. Hart gets a new partner called Duckers, who is a delight. And he is the comic relief. My note is, love the comic relief. His appendix burst, and so the doctors, magicians, priests, something had to put his soul in a tattoo on his arm. And Hart is talking about how when you have a drudge, you have to stab it through the appendix so the soul or the spirit or the magic inhabiting the drudge goes away. And Hart says, the appendix is very small. Well, let me tell you, it felt fucking huge when it blew up inside me. My note is, lol. As this friend, this is from Murphy's perspective, took shape in her mind, he began to bear a striking resemblance to Hart Ralston. An image Mercy batted away as quickly as it formed. Because they're hot for each other. And then in Hart's perspective, this vague sense of a woman began to resemble horrid Mercy Birdsall. So both of them are picturing the other as their pen pal. And why the fuck did that woman insist on looking like Mercy Birdsall? He's so mad about it. Duckers is trying to figure out like what the deal between Mercy and Hart is. Is it a game? Because if it is, it seems to me like you're both losing badly. And my comment is a heart and yep, exclamation point. Ben says, I think he likes you. Mercy thinks he's got a funny way of showing it. Yes, it's very immature, friends. Grammar monster. They're very funny in their letters. Their mythology is great. The you've got mail moment. Penn or Duckers is there with Hart. And Hart says, don't go in there. Don't tell anyone about this. And Ducker says, with all due respect, sir, you are being a dick. And I said, agreed. I don't like what he's doing, but I like his response. I like Ducker's response. This is a line from, again, his perspective. He understood that she could not entertain the idea that Hart Ralston was the man behind the pen. And somehow, that was worse than the notion that this had been a joke to her. I think this word is used incorrectly. Let me know in the comments if you think the word is used incorrectly. Lillian's pupils dilated into pinpricks of outrage. You can't dilate into something small. Dilate means to get bigger. So I disliked that. Oh, I loved Mercy's response where she sends him a letter, unknown him, and says who she is. And oh my gosh, it's just a beautiful letter. At the end of a chapter, he was helplessly, boundlessly, stupidly in love with Mercy Birdsall. Yes, you are, sir. They dance at a community kind of party because now Hart is trying to woo her and they're holding hands. He literally just says, come dance with me. And she thinks she had forgotten how much she enjoyed the touch of masculine sinew and bone and skin, which I think is such a great line. After the dance, Hart leaned into her, still clutching his hat. May I? Yes, please. She doesn't even let him ask fully. I like that he asked, and it entertained me that she answered like that. I liked this use of an adjective or, yes. His lips skimmed an indulgent path down her neck. Another really good metaphor. He wants to go down on her. She's like, you don't have to, but I want to. He obliged. He says, may I? There's literally nothing I would rather be doing. May I? Okay. He obliged, tasting her and soaking in the moans of her approval like good soil drinking in the rain. I loved that metaphor. Ooh, and he says, show me what to do. I will always appreciate someone asking how to please their partner. There is contraception. Oh, but my note at the end was what a short scene. Oh, and then it faded to black. I'm like, why? Why did we have a fade to black? This is when the miscommunication starts. He's being just a dick and he goes, yep, I'm a real mess, aren't I? And her response is, would you stop twisting my words around? I'm trying to help you. And I like that her response wasn't immediately to yell at him or reinforce that belief, but to in fact prove him wrong. This is one of the moments when I don't like her intention, but I do like his reaction. She is kind of pouting because she's like, you can never come back here again. And he didn't. And she's like, we kind of want him to come back. So I highlighted she had told him not to set foot in Birdsall and Son ever again, and he hadn't. And I'm glad he listened. That's what you should do. When someone tells you something like that, you should listen. I don't like that she's being petty. I was like, you should have known I didn't mean it for real. No, you should have said what you wanted. I'm not going to read this whole paragraph, but I quite honestly started crying. My note is, this is what made me cry. We find out who Hart's dad is, and then I cried again, weeping. This is Mercy absolutely demolishing him. You should be sorry that you thought I wouldn't eventually forgive you for not telling me about the letters. You should be sorry that you couldn't push past what I said in anger and come talk to me. You should be sorry that you put yourself in danger when the people who love you would rather keep you here. You should be sorry that you went and saved the world and got yourself killed in the process and left me here without you. I don't want to hear, I'm sorry, Mercy, or I don't deserve you, Mercy, or I hope you find someone else, Mercy. I want to hear, I love you, Mercy. And that was the last thing I highlighted. There are 2 more books in this series. I really enjoyed it. I can't explain why I felt it was cozy. I don't know why. Book number 3 was an ALC, Advanced Listening copy of All Superheroes Need PR, which I now have a physical copy of, and I went through my notes, which I couldn't do for the previous video for the when I read the arc of this, but I got the ALC and I got to listen to it, and then I got to compare my notes when the book came out, because yes, since I listened to it, the book has come out. I love the book. And you can listen to the episode where I talk about All Superheroes Need PR. I will put a link somewhere. But the audiobook, personally, I found the pacing at 1 speed to be a little slow. It's not my preference. I like a more conversational style. But when I put it up to 1.25, couldn't tell the difference. The male narrator's name is Sean Bassett, and his voice, I literally almost fell on the floor. Like, my knees went weak. I buckled. I loved it so much. I loved the book, and the audiobook I felt did a really great job. These actors really brought the attitude of these characters to life. Sean Bassett did a phenomenal job of Roland hating everyone and being morose and taciturn and then being completely obsessed with Vanessa. Dara Brown was the female narrator, and Vanessa is really unsure. She has massive anxiety, and so her warbles and her soft-spokenness were a great contrast to Sean Bassett's Roland. That's all I'm going to say, because you can watch my actual review in that video I linked, but I'm going to go through my notes. At the beginning of this, Vanessa is talking to her best friend, Marjorie. Marjorie talks about the money they'd get from landing the Pyro's contract. And she says, like, we'll feed our children. And Vanessa's response is, you don't even want kids. Damn straight, but that doesn't mean I don't want to use my kids' money to buy a yacht and retire at 38. If you retire at 38, I will knife you, is Vanessa's response, and that just made me lol. Yeah, I can't show you that art. Elizabeth Stevens does not pull punches with capitalism. You're talking about the villains versus the champions. That's where capitalism came in, with the COE paying 48 members to join the heroes team. I love this. It's such a diverse book. And my note is, Star Love, a Black woman-founded corporate consulting firm with a white trans woman CMO, wasn't always met with open arms. Don't even mention the fact that the rest of the C-suite's members were either minorities, queer, or both. A couple times we'd even won blind bids and still been denied the contract, the client preferring to go with someone who had the kind of face they wanted to represent the firm. This is what happens when she meets Roland, or Pyro as he's being called then. My left knee buckles and I swoon, like some Victorian era maiden with her corset tied too tight to breathe. I start to fall. The unfamiliar male, who looks like he just came in from a bar brawl, lunges, pushing past Mr. Sinkham and causing the older man to stumble directly into Garrison, who's holding a cup of coffee. It goes flying. It is a domino effect of disasters. It's so funny. And just a little bit later in the scene, he arrives in front of me in the time it takes for me to blink and catches my arm. His hand is a shade of brown, darker than mine. And he just grabs her and saves her from falling. And it is hysterical. So after Roland rejects them and they're all sad and they go to a bar to drink, Jem, who is one of the team members at the firm, he says, "Are you all insane? He was rude, a scoundrel. I didn't like him one bit," Jem says. "Is that a line from The Mummy?" I mumble. My note is a heart. It is! It is a line from The Mummy, which is a cinematic masterpiece, the 1999 movie The Mummy starring Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. You should watch it if you haven't. She spills wine and as she's talking to a random dude at this bar and he grabs a bunch of napkins. She says, "Oh, thanks," I say, stuttering wildly, but he doesn't hand them to me and instead moves them toward my chest where red wine seeps through my shirt over my bra. And my note is, ew, like you should not touch a woman's chest, even if she spilled wine on it. She is so drunk and Roland shows up. I open my mouth and burp. The cold hand of humiliation is valiantly trying to creep up my spine, but it's having a hard time getting past that lingering warmth. My note is so much awkward. My note is shock face. I flail my hands, trying to gesture for him to back up, which of course causes him to do the opposite, just in time for me to projectile vomit all over him. Part of the reason why I respect my arcs and typically don't share quotes is arcs still have room for improvement. And there is a note that I have that I had found an error in the arc and I was confused about it. And in my final copy, it's fixed. And so that is part of the reason why you're not supposed to share quotes from arcs and why I don't, because sometimes those things that I'm noting as inconsistencies or errors, they get fixed. Mr. Sinkum comes back and says, "We want the contract, we're going to negotiate it." And they're all meeting to, finalize it. And Roland says, "You never have to talk to anybody in this building or anywhere else ever again, Vanessa. But I expect my wife to talk to me, and when she does, to call me Roland, not Mr. Castile." And my note was, what? Then it goes, "Your wife?" I glance around feeling deeply uncomfortable holding his hand like this, knowing he has a wife. How did that not come up in our research? "You have a wife?" He freezes. "Yes, you. Or did you not understand the current terms of our deal?" He's trying to make her his wife via contract, and it is delightful. Roland's perspective, I don't know what it is, but when I first saw her, every instinct in my body told me to do one thing: protect her, which is nothing he's ever felt for a human before in his life. My note is, yes, I don't like things touching her. Only me and only with consent. I didn't like the way it felt when she recoiled from me. Which is a whole other, she's very insecure and all of that stuff, but I love him. He's immediately obsessed and completely respectful of her. Calls her Nessa. They develop really cute nicknames for each other, I have to say. Hers is Nessa. And then calls her baby. Her cheeks get bright red when I call her that, which makes me want to call her baby 1,000 times over. His inner monologue is very intense. She got chased by reporters and she tripped and fell because she's really clumsy and hurt her ankle. And he's contemplating boiling their organs from the inside out and how the world will never know it's him. So they'll write medical reports and scientific papers about it. And most importantly of all, nothing like that's ever going to happen to her again because I'm not going to let her out of my sight. Enough. Kidnap. No, I've got a better idea than that. And I just love that his inner monologue is so intense, but he also doesn't let it go. Like, doesn't go with it. He wants to kidnap her and goes, "Nope, can't do that. Can't kidnap her, even though I want to." Vanessa was abused as a child. So check your trigger warnings. None of it's on page. There are memories and they talk about it, but it's not on page. And one of the ways that is manifested is she's very timid and she shies away from yelling. She doesn't do it. She doesn't react well to it. And they have a fight. They're yelling because she wants to go to work and he wants her to stay home and heal. He closes the door softly behind him, and I realize, staring blankly into space for the next few minutes, that this is the first time I've ever yelled at anybody, and the first time I've ever had anybody yell at me back as an adult. And my note is huge. Later down the page, she thinks, At no point in our shouting match did I feel unsafe. Did I hear my subconscious mind whispering to me in the voice of my mother? I felt safe enough to shout at somebody, I think. My note is a heart, because that's a huge thing. And she even mentions it to Marjorie later. I can't believe I didn't note it. Marjorie had the same reaction that I did, which was understanding how big of a deal it was that they could shout at each other and it was okay. This is something that we're gonna come back to in a bit, because Roland says he's gonna move in with her immediately, and she's trying to explain to her team that this is gonna be awkward because, well, I never really planned on having a roommate, so when I redid the rooms, I didn't set up a guest room. I tried telling him a couple times, but I kept getting interrupted. There's only one bed in my house, and my note is only one bed. And then her nickname for him, and she just thinks it just comes to her, is Rolo. And I love it. I love that that's just her instinctive name. Oh, it's just so funny. His praise and her response to it is delicious. He likes, Nessa, use your words. He's very, very intentional about verbal consent from her. The whole thing. Tell me. I like obeying your rules. Like a good girl. You're a good girl, I whisper. Fuck. Oh, he's so funny. He's like, I want to marry you. Remember, he wanted her to be his wife? And so they're talking about this. They're at dinner, and he is like, so we're getting married. She goes, what? No, can we get through dinner first before talking about this? And he says, how many dinners until I get to marry you? She balks. That's not how this works. She balks. That's not how it works. Vanessa gets kidnapped. And when she's released, it's a scare tactic, and she is released, but the kidnapper brought her to her childhood home, and she's having a panic attack. And Roland flies to save her. Yes, he can fly. And his inner monologue, I draw my hand from my mouth, gather my senses, and what tatters are left of my sanity, and I roar at the top of my lungs, who fucking touched you? No, I don't. I whisper gruffly, where else you hurt? And my note is I love the restraint, because while he wants to scream, he understands that that is not the response that she needs. After Roland becomes the monster, I know it's called something, but I can't remember what the name of it is. They're in an office with Mr. Sinkham, Vanessa, and Roland. And he says, you either talk to her with the respect she deserves, or I will kill you. Vanessa squeaks and tries to pull her hand out of mine, but I don't let her. I may be a hero, but I'm only a hero for her. For you, I can be a villain just fine. My note is swoon. You're such a good girl. Oh my God, the praise does terrible things to me. It brings tears to my eyes. It also reassures me that no matter what comes out of his mouth next, I'll do whatever he asks of me. You know what? Some people really love that phrase, and that is allowed. I was not expecting the transformation, so when it happens, I wrote gasp. But then my note, when Vanessa wakes up and she walks into her bathroom and there's glass all over the floor, is like, honestly, how did you sleep through that? He breaks your entire mirror and it shatters onto the floor. How did you sleep through it? They're all trying to go save Roland, who's been kidnapped by the baddies, and her team and her brothers are trying to coordinate an attack. Jeremy says he carries a weapon, and Charlie, her brother, responds with, I'm former Marines. Course I carry. What's your excuse? And Jeremy says, I'm a gay man from backcountry Georgia. And my note is valid. When all of the real history of the aliens are revealed, my note was big eyes in the epilogue when they have sex with her, fully understanding his monster form. This is his... here's the quote. My cock, which once had brown skin covering a veiny shaft, is now the girth of a goddamn Coke bottle, as long as her forearm and dark red. And my note is too big. So those are the quotes from All Superheroes Need PR. I loved it. I love the audiobook. I'm just obsessed. Book number 4 is Lose Me in the Shadows by Joe Brenner. This is book 2 in this trilogy. This will ruin everything for book 1, full disclosure, but it's short, it's spicy as fuck, and it is a dark romance, so please be warned. At the end of book 1, Kara escapes from essentially being held hostage by Luke, Connor, and Micah, who are all her exes, who are also together with each other and want to be with her. There's a lot of backstory, so you're just going to have to read book 1 or skip to the next book for this. And immediately, she gets kidnapped by the people who are after the men. The men are being framed for something they didn't do by a mysterious entity, and they are in hiding, and they kidnapped her to join them in the Tetons, where they have built a cabin that is, you know, unreachable and off-grid and all sorts of stuff. And so then they have to go save her, and then they go find people who will help them, and they discover that the baddie who's after them is also related to her ex-boyfriend, and it gets a little bit it's really fast, but it's also book 2 in the trilogy, so it mostly sets up book 3 with a fuck ton of spice. That's really it. At the end, I think there's another cliffhanger. It ends on a cliffhanger, and so book 3 concludes the epic adventure with a bunch of spice and kink of these 4. I enjoyed it. It didn't stick out to me as anything special. It definitely felt like a book 2. Now, the thing about a lot of independently published dark romance novels, including this one, is this is less than 300 pages. It's short. And so because they're serialized, yes, if these 3 books were one book, it would be about 800 pages. That is too long. But what I've realized I need to do is not treat them like individual stories, but like serials. I'm getting the next chapter, I'm getting the amuse-bouche, rather than a whole complete storyline. And that has made me a lot happier when reading them, because I don't feel as frustrated with the lack of completion of a story. Not a separate book, but just a continuation of the first one. If you don't like kink, you will not like this book. If you don't like MMMF, you won't like this book. If you don't like violence, you won't like this book. If you want well-adjusted people who are great at communicating, you won't like this book. This is a dark romance. Check your trigger warnings. It is not for the faint of heart. There is dubious consent and non-consent and just a lot of stuff that is standard in dark romance, but if that's not what you're looking for, you shouldn't be reading it. Please make sure that you are fully consenting to these experiences when you read the book, because that's the most important part, is that you are walking into a dark romance with the full understanding of what you're about to read so that you can keep yourself safe. With that in mind, I'm going to go just through my notes, because plot-wise, as I said, it's pretty simplistic. The only thing you might need to know is that Kara, in her escape from the menfolk, shot Luke. He didn't die. He's fine. He's not fine. He's shot, but she shot him to escape. My first thing is, why aren't there condoms? Maybe that's not for everyone, friends. Kara is now kidnapped, and she's thinking about her current kidnappers versus her men. And they are her men. She dated all of them or slept with all of them before they kidnapped her. So she thinks, but it was different. She'd known them, and God forgiven her, she'd wanted them. The power dynamic might have been fucked, but they'd given her a safe word. So even though what they did was unethical and they kidnapped her and kind of forced her into, living with them, they really did want her to want them, and they did give her a safe word and a way to back off. She is a straight up kidnapped in this by people who don't care and will absolutely assault her. The boys are talking about how they are going to punish her, Luke specifically, the one that got shot. And once I've recovered, I'm going to lay into her ass so hard she won't sit for 10 years. Maybe lock her up in a chastity belt with a remote control vibe and edge her for a year before I let her come. Make the spider gag part of her daily routine. I was so fucking angry at her. And my note is, I had to look up what a spider gag was. I love learning new things. This is just such a funny line. A woman who shot you was not a woman who would love you or a woman you should love. But Luke's heart was a masochist. Oh, a lot of nicknames. There's just a good girl, baby girl, brave girl, if you're into nicknames. I love this. So I'm just going to read his inner monologue. You know what He did. He'd sucked cock and licked cum before, but he'd never expected to eat his own out of his favorite pussy and like it. I love that. This is really true. This is not only sex for us, but it's the only way you seem to know how to communicate and what you seem to need. So that's what we give you, which is so valid. And I think just puts home that sometimes sex is a really important communication tool in a relationship. Why sex scenes should be unskippable and unique and continue the plot. Unless the plot is just erotica, and that's different. They're talking about their enemy, and his name is Vincent Trust, and my note is, Elon anyone? Because I'm pretty sure that's who this baddie is meant to resemble. A line of Connor, please God, let this not be a mistake. He didn't believe in any God, so he prayed to Kara and Micah's. The Jewish version of God was as good as any. My note is Hart, because I forgot that Kara and Micah are Jewish. Micah, roadhead is something people joke about, not something people actually do. I agree. I think that's terrifying and dangerous. And that is the last thing I highlighted. Again, not bad, but more like a chapter within a story than a story in itself. This is true dark romance. That is your warning. But if you like dark romance, the trilogy is complete, so you can just read all three. Book number 5 was Ready to Score by Jodie Slaughter. I did not enjoy this book. And I will tell you why. I read this as an arc. I don't plan on getting it. I didn't enjoy it. I felt like the dynamic was uncomfortable. Like one of the main characters made just bad choices and her head was a really unfortunate place to be in. I didn't enjoy myself. This story takes place in a small town in the South where you've got Jade, who is an established teacher and assistant coach on the high school football team, and she is gunning for the head coach position. Franny recently moved to town for a relationship that ended. She is the art teacher, and she coached football back in Texas and wants to get on the coaching team. Now, Jade views her as a rival and is therefore incredibly mean to Franny because she feels like there's only room for one queer woman of color on this coaching staff in this boys club, and it's gonna be her. So she is outright rude to Franny, even though she's also incredibly attracted to Franny, and they obviously have a lot in common, both being passionate football fans and coaches. There's this rivalry, there's a little bit of intrigue, there's some plotting, and overall, it's just a very uncomfortable place to sit for me. They hook up, but it's kind of secret. They don't want to. Jade makes some really unfortunate decisions and puts her own career at risk. It was not fun. And then on top of that, I realized that this book, while not listed as part of a series, is part of a series. And some of Jade's friends had earlier books. And so maybe I would have liked Jade better if I knew her from other books, but just from this, no thank you. It was just really frustrating because I liked the concept of the story so much and I wanted to like the book more, but my experience of it wasn't fun. Jade wasn't a good person or a good character to be in the head of, and didn't take responsibility for her own actions. Like, I just wanted to hit her upside the head time and time again when she was dealing with Franny as a potential lover, as a rival, when she was dealing with the other coaches, when she made silly mistakes. It wasn't enjoyable. Franny was fine, but she didn't redeem the story for me, even though we do get things from her perspective. It wasn't enough to distance myself from the discomfort of Jade. You might find it different. You might love a story where you have an unlikable character who has to be redeemed, but I don't like being in the head of that kind of person. I don't want to be in the head of someone who is so miserable so often and makes these bad decisions and has her decisions bite her in the ass. That's my personal preference. Like I said, I do not plan on getting this book. I'm just going to go over my notes, which is enough for me because I am looking at the ARC version, I won't be reading quotes. I'll just be reading my commentary. Okay, so it was South Carolina where they were. Jade feels a lot of competition and pressure and just the agony of all she's gone through to get to where she is, and I think that's valid. But when she talks about how she feels about the process of potentially getting promoted, my note is, this feels dumb. And then I have a note in chapter 4, what's up with both of them lying? Like, please don't lie. That's just not okay. Franny's brother asked if she was going to get a coaching position. She says, like, oh yeah, I'm like really, it's like gonna happen, basically. That's not the quote. It's not even the paraphrase. I didn't use any of the same words. But my note is, what's up with both of them lying? Because Jade also was lying beforehand, and I dislike that. Ooh, Franny comes on real strong and basically confronts Jade about Jade being attracted to Franny, and my note is bold. Someone says, like, oh my gosh, this was so different. And I go, is it though? Franny gets whacked in the head, and this is my caring for her when she's hurt note. Franny really tries to be the bigger person and is the bigger person in this situation and doesn't understand why Jade feels like it's only one of them and they both can't work together, and I agree with her. Honestly, Jade is being so shady, and my note is, I'm starting to really dislike Jade. When Franny realizes that she's fallen for Jade, my note is why? Because I wouldn't fall for Jade. Oh my gosh, there was like a fade to black, and my note is, why did it stop there? They're talking about sex toys, and I said a shared harness is kind of romantic. And those are the only comments I made on this. If you read this and you felt differently, that is totally fine. I wanted to like this book so much more than I did, so I'm glad that other people really resonated with it. But tell me what about it really drew you in, because maybe your opinions will help me be a little bit less judgy the next time I read a book like this. Book number 6 was another arc that I did not like. It is Coming in Hot by Josie Juniper. This is the second book after Double Apex in her F1 series. I didn't like so much about this book. This is Klaus and Natalia's story. Their story was set up in the first book as they had a history, but in this book we get the history and the playing out of their relationship. And with the first book, going race to race makes a lot of sense because that's when they interacted, but the structure of this book didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand why it was structured the way that it was. They wouldn't see each other for weeks or months, and it just felt really forced. I didn't understand their connection. I didn't believe them. There was bad kink in this book. It felt like Josie Juniper was trying too hard to try and recreate the first book in the second book, but they're different. Yes, of course they're different, but they're a different kind of relationship. It's not an F1 player and his engineer anymore. It's a team manager and a reporter. And the dynamics were weird and the age gap was odd and just like, I didn't believe it. And so watching this story play out and then to also have some of my least favorite tropes in it, I just wanted to throw the damn e-reader because it wasn't enjoyable. I didn't even feel like it was executed well. There are ways to execute tropes that I don't particularly like so that I at least understand them and can agree with your choices. I didn't agree with any of the choices, partially because when you've structured the book in a way that doesn't make sense, I can't follow along well. It was so frustrating. And the first book was decent. I didn't hate it. It was a second act breakup. It had a few things that I don't always love, but I understood. I got it. I felt like the character choices, while I wouldn't have done them myself, I could believe that they would make those choices. This book didn't feel like any of that to me. Also, it relies on you knowing stuff from the first book, but also not knowing things from the first book because they're never restated. And we're experiencing everything from the first book because these are kind of dual timelines from a different perspective. So their feelings about what happened in the first book, they got to be different. The timing of it didn't even align in a way that was understandable. I had to refer to my notes from the first book to understand what was happening here, how and why and when. And it wasn't pleasant. And that's another thing that I don't love. I don't love when sequels or further books overlap with previous books and we interact with the same timelines. I get really confused. It's one of the hardest parts about the Jacksonville Ray series for me is these overlapping timelines. This one just did not work. Like that series, they're independent enough that I'm okay with it. This was not. I was really not okay with how this all played out. And that was frustrating, and I wanted to punch a bitch in the face. I also felt like the relationship between Natalia and Phaedra from the first book was weird and creepy and not resolved well either. So it like, why? It felt like she should have had more time, or her editor just didn't care. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm just going to go to my notes because the more that I think about this book, the madder I am. I remember I can only read my commentary, but now I'm wondering if I actually commented on it. So they're talking about a fight that happened between two characters in the previous book that we only got from not Natalia's perspective, I believe. We're getting Natalia's inner monologue about the fight. And I noticed, you need to show us the fight. You need to show us the fight again from Natalia's perspective, because I'm not going back to the first book to remember what happened. This is too fast is my note. Again, Phaedra and Natalia's relationship, it's just a lot of like inner monologue commentary, and my note is show, don't tell. She assumes that she and Klaus are going to have a change or a turning point in their relationship without him ever saying that, and my note is, why would you assume that? Why would you assume that Klaus is just going to change his mind about something when he's never given you any indication that he plans to? So they had a date in Monaco. She's referring back to it, and my note is, we got maybe 3 pages about that dinner. Why weren't we actually at the dinner? We're talking about the dinner instead of being at the dinner. He says something completely valid that is not intended to hurt. He's not being mean. He's not being petty. And she overreacts and is trying to hurt him. And my note is, he didn't say anything with the intention of hurting you. You are overreacting to this thing that isn't a thing. I don't know why I thought she was a redhead and then her hair is described as dark, but I can be wrong because honestly, I don't like her. Oh yeah, bad kink and things that don't make sense. Objects that are being used in ways where the description doesn't match. Yeah, like, is it a hand or is it an implement? I don't understand. Also, we didn't talk enough about the kink for me to be okay with you doing these kinds of things. Oh, another, why couldn't we see that? A moment from the first book that we don't get to see in this book, but we talk about because it's a pivotal moment. Some emotional reaction post-sex. And my note is, what the hell, after all that, you don't tell her or us what's up? She looks at his computer, and my note is, nope. Like, you don't get to sneak on, like, she sneaks onto his computer. That is such a breach of trust. Then she, like, walks away hoping he'll follow her, and my note is, you're such a fucking child. Ooh, more. You seem to be playing with kink and impact with no knowledge or negotiation. Not okay. It's not okay. Friends, kink is not just like a cool buzzword or something fun. No. Oh, and she goes through his briefcase. No thanks. What the fuck? What is it about condom? Like, why aren't we using the condoms when you've talked about it? She talks about how wet she is, and I said, no, you're filled with cum, because she is. I don't 100% understand why I said this, but I did have a note. All of this is gross. And she gets mad about what she found in his briefcase. Too fucking bad. You're not supposed to know about it. You eavesdropped. And then I go, I'm gonna scream when another plot point. She makes decisions for him. Like, oh, this is what it's gonna be like because obviously you feel this way. That's not, nope. And she says something about, like, the age when children can fly across the ocean. The age is anytime you want. There is no, like, minimum age for a transatlantic flight for a kid. She also complains about not having a support system. I'm like, you build one. I did not like it. I did not like it, which was so disappointing, and ended the week on a sour note. 2 arcs in a row that I did not enjoy, but you know what? Sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. So that's everything I read the week of May 19th through May 25th. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books or what you read that week. Make sure you like and subscribe to get updated on my next What I Read video. And until next time, this is Jace holding space for you.